Hey, what's going on, Summoners, Game Leapers, anyone watching? This is Coach Cheeks, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the 15 most broken champions for patch 12.13. Now, a couple of points here. 12.12b is live right now, so there were some changes that came out a little bit earlier today. So we're actually focusing on the 12.13 changes on top of that as well, because there were so many of them. And this patch, just to let all of you know, is coming out in 2 weeks' time. So not next week, in around 13-14 days. So to know which champions are going to be super OP for that patch, make sure you stick around for the whole video. And any questions, guys, any thoughts, if you like the video, all of that stuff down below, you know the drill by now. Losing LP on the Rift is bad, but losing your passwords, your credit cards, your financial security, that's an FF. That's why today's video, guys, is sponsored by Aura, the best all-in-one platform with a VPN, transaction monitoring, credit card lock, identity protection, 24-hour customer service. So all those credit card scammers, all those Nigerian princes, all those identity thieves, Aura protects you from them so you can happily sleep at night and wake up the next morning and splash the cash on a bunch of skins. Now, the most impressive thing about Aura is that it monitors that dark, seedy web, trying to find any use of your emails, passwords, usernames, so they can catch credit card theft before it even happens. And you can try out this amazing service for 2 weeks absolutely free. All you have to do is download it from one of our links down below. It will only take 2 seconds, but your personal information will be as secure as it can be for a lifetime. Let's get into the countdown. Now, the 15 champions, guys, I'm going to mention, they're in no particular order. So if you think a champion is going to be number 1, the most broken of all time, make sure you let us know down below. If you think a champion shouldn't be on the countdown, let us know that information as well. So we'll start off by talking about Kassadin. Now, why is Kassadin so good? Well, quite simply because the game is more about scaling. Getting to level 16, getting the scaling in there as Kassadin, well, it's just going to happen more. And because mages at the moment are stronger than their attack damage counterparts, this means that for Kassadin, being the ultimate mage counter, you're just going to froth this meta, perhaps more than anyone else. So Cass has to be in this countdown. Even if Everfrost got nerfed a patch or so ago, it hasn't really affected him because you can go Luden's Tempest, you can go Crown of the Shattered Queen, you have other mythic options, and because Cass is not getting nerfed in 12.13, he just has to be here. Now, following Kassadin, we have Kayn, and specifically Red Kayn, so the Ras version. Why? Well, it's quite simply Red Kayn, and he's like the most durable champion of all time. How can you kill a Red Kayn in a durability meta? Well, quite simply, you can't. I mean, you can, but it's just very difficult. Red Kayn loves it when the fights go long, stacking Conqueror, getting multiple cooldowns off, because, you know, late game, you're going to have so much ability haste, whether you go Cleaver, Death Stance, Gore Trinker. And because of the Gore Trinker buff last patch, so the ability haste via the mythic passive, you have more ability haste than ever before. So for Red Kayn, the win rates in every single elo are kind of insane. And he's played an awful lot, which really just goes to show how good the champion is. Now, following Kayn, we have Renata. And for Renata, no changes, no nerfs in 12.13. How good? Just like Kassadin and Kayn, you're still going to be as strong as you are right now. Her innate kit, so her Q, the displacement, her W, the bailout, the Zillion ultimate if you want to call it that, the E, the shield you can give your AD carry, and of course the ultimate, which can be devastating in team fights, whether it's at level 6, whether it's around Barons in the late game. She is such a strong champion that even if Riot were to nerf her even more, she would probably still be on this countdown. Now, the next 2 champions, we're going to stay in the bot lane here, guys, and the first of these we're going to talk about Kalista. And Kalista, in my opinion, at the moment anyway, after Zeri, is the number 1 AD carry. So for Kalista, because of the movement speed and attack speed buffs a few patches ago, and because she works so well with lethal tempo, she's actually crushing it. Now, it does take a little bit of time to master Kalista, but once you do, those Kalistas and higher reloads, for example, she's an S+ tier champion. She has around a 52-53% win rate, and her real power is during the laning phase pretty much impossible to beat, so Kalista is also in this video. But we're kind of going on the other end of the spectrum here in terms of when this next AD carry is strong, this being Twitch, because unlike Kalista, you're actually just straight up toilets here in the early game. I mean, if the enemy champions run it down, you can still pick up kills, of course, but I'm really saying that Twitch is a late game scaler. With lethal tempo, once you start getting items, that's where Twitch can get really scary. And because Twitch, unlike Zeri, is not getting nerfed in 12.13, I mean, even at the moment, right, he's one of the standout AD carries, he has to be in consideration as one of the most broken champs in 2 weeks' time as well. And this is also the case, guys, for Seraphine. But you might be like, but Seraphine is getting nerfed in 12.13. Well, you're right. Her E's cooldown is kind of getting semi-reverted to 1.25 seconds. So it was 1 second a patch ago. It's going to be 1.25 from 1.5 right now. But that's still a really nice buff overall if you think about it. This brings more utility to your team, but Riot are also nerfing your passives damage. So once you start spamming your spells and using your auto attack damage, this might be way more important for mid lane and AP carry Seraphine than it would be for support Seraphine, but pair Seraphine in 12.13 with Leandri's Anguish with that ability haste with a hyper carry AD carry like a Twitch, for example, going to be very difficult to beat. Now, another champion who's going to be very difficult to beat in 12-13, I mean, all of these are, but Yone is going to be another one. And Yone, just like Kassadin, amazing scaler. And because you're more secure in the early game, less chance of you dying, of course, because the buffs to armor, HP, magic resist, Yone can get to that point where he's got Infinity Edge, Shield Bow, Mortar Reminder, whatever major items you have, get to 2 to 3 items so your Q is on a 1.33 second cooldown, you're good to go. And because there isn't much counterplay to Yone's kit, especially with his E, he's one of the most annoying champions, definitely in lower elos anyway, so I'm sure lots of you agree with this one. Now we're going to stay in the mid lane, guys, and talk about Ahri as well. Now Ahri, even though she's been nerfed multiple times for multiple patches, she is still the standout mid laner. Even with Everfrost getting nerfed, do we really care about this? No, because it's kind of like talking about Renata, just innately strong. Because of the changes to Ahri herself earlier in the season, she is still killing it. She's so hard to counter in the mid lane as well. She doesn't really have any big weaknesses, so you can blind pick her. She works with any team composition. She's good against any team composition because you can play her like a utility mage. You can play her full damage with a Luden's Tempest if you wanted to. And let's not forget that your Spirit Rush, you can get multiple of these off because of the resets. She is just way too strong to leave off this countdown for another patch. Now, the champion who is going to be the king of the top lane, and guys, if you do make any of your own lists in the comment section, Darius has to be a top 3 champion. I don't care what role you are, what bias you have towards your own champions, Darius is just going to be the nuts. Because of the Divine Sunderer changes, we might see a bit of a nerf to Jax and Camille, who are strong Divine Sunderer champions at the moment, so Darius really is just standing alone at the top of that top lane pyramid. And because of the durability meta, Darius is just a champion who loves extended fights. Because of his low W cooldown, his passive, the hemorrhage stacks, it is so difficult to beat this dude. Even if you're a hard counter to Darius, like a Wukong for example, he is just so strong, it's almost like he doesn't have any counters at the moment. And because tanks got buffed last patch because of Balmy Cinder, the tank mythics getting more HP, Darius shreds these champions, destroys them. So no doubt Darius will be banned by most top laners again for another patch, but there's no arguing that he is the absolute nuts for top lane in 12-13. Now staying in the top lane, I mean, I guess you could play Tahm Kench as a support or as an AD carry with Senna as your support, but Tahm Kench, yes, it's going to be good for another patch, even if he's getting nerfed. And just like Seraphine, guys, he's actually got nerfed in 12.12b. So these are all live, but they're going to stay in 12-13, obviously. And for Tahm Kench, your bonus magic damage from your passive, well, this is scaling less off your bonus HP, but it's still a buff from before because it was 2.5% before. Now it's going to be 3%. So still a little buff overall, but your health growth is going down. So your HP per level, this is down by 6. So you won't be as tanky. You will just be more killable. But the thing is, guys, Tahm Kench is just going to be too oppressive still because Balmy Cinder is so cheap. Frostfire Gauntlet, even the damage you do, I mean, as a tank, it's very hard to deal with Tahm Kench, especially for players in lower elos. So even though these nerfs might look kind of significant, it's not going to nerf him enough from being one of the top 15 champs. Now, speaking of 12-13 changes, guys, well, this next champion, we have Katarina, who's actually buffed right now. So if you guys are playing or playing against Katarina in 12.12b, you've got 2 weeks of these changes. So what Riot have done, these are all just buffs, by the way, as well. Your dagger's AP ratio is up 10% in the early game, and this might go down to 7% in the late game, but this is still significant. Now, your Q's damage, this is going up in terms of the base damage by 5, and also scaling more of your AP. Now, your AD ratio per dagger, this is increasing as well, but it is scaling a little bit less off your bonus attack speed. And as for your on-hit ratio in your ultimate, well, this is actually going up again. So if you're thinking of going Divine Sunderer, well, maybe you could do, but it just looks better, guys, maybe here to rush Nash's Tooth, then follow this with maybe a Rocket Belt because of the extra AP ratio in your Q now. I mean, you still could go Divine Sunderer because the AD ratio per dagger buff, but for Katarina, regardless of the build you're going, these are significant improvements. And to be honest, I feel as if Riot are just going to buff all the damage in the game again until we're back where we were before the durability meta. So I'd love to know, Katarina mains, if you're out there, what you think of these buffs and whether she will actually be OP. Maybe I'm just overrating these changes. Let me know down below. Now we're going to stay with champions here, guys, who will be affected in 12-13 by some changes. This champion being Qiyana. Now you might be like, but Qiyana is just bad in this durability meta. Well, really, she's not. In high reloads, even in platinum and above, she's considered as an S tier champion. In the jungle as well as the mid lane, the champion is performing very well. And next patch, because every single lethality mythic is giving you more movement speed per legendary item, this is amazing for Qiyana because you have some of the best mobility in the game. And because assassins do typically fall off in later stages of a game, especially in this meta, this just sounds great for Qiyana. You can get around the map, you can get flanks on, you can pick off the enemy AD carries who are solo farming side lanes. I think this is going to result in more kills in the mid to late game, which is really when these assassins are struggling. But just because Qiyana isn't really struggling, that's why I've put her in this countdown. And again, if there are any Qiyana mains, I'd love to know your thoughts on this movement speed buff, or for any of you attack attack damage assassin players out there, Zed's talents. Let me know what's up in the comments. Now, I've got 3 more champions to discuss in this video, guys, and the first of these is Senna, who is getting nerfed, well, kind of heavily in terms of the amount of nerfs in 12-13. So your base HP down by 30. Your Q's base damage in the early game is down by 10, but it's actually increasing by 10 at level 9, because you'll be maxing this first, of course, and your W's root duration is going to be a quarter of a second shorter at each rank. That doesn't really mean that much, to be honest, but the base HP going down, squishier in the early game. Your Q's base damage going down in the early game. This means you're just less annoying and more killable. But here's the thing, guys, your scaling is really still there. But if you've really read the patch notes, you will also know that Eclipse is getting nerfed. So yes, it's giving you more movement speed per legendary item like I talked about for Qiyana, but the problem here is that the range damage proc is going to deal 3% max HP. So this has gone down from 6%, but to be honest, as Senna, you can go Kraken Slayer if you want to. You might even be able to still go Locket of the Iron Solari. Even Dustblade might work on her. So there are still other build options, and the champion is still going to be way too good despite all of these nerfs. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this next champion, guys, and the buffs to Master Yi. So your attack range, just like Bel'veth, is going from 125 to 175. So that's kind of important. And what's really causing a lot of commotion is this right here. So when your Alpha Strike ends, so your Q, you can choose the direction you want to appear relative to the target. Now, how on earth is that balanced? Like, how on earth does that give anyone playing against Master Yi any sort of counterplay here? It just doesn't make sense. This is going to make the champion incredibly busted. And the extra range as well. This is just ridiculous. And regardless of the W changes, who cares about any of these when the attack range and the Alpha Strike, you can just appear wherever you want to? That is just absurd to me, and I'd love to know, guys, anyone watching this video, like, do you think this is the most stupid change you've ever heard? Because I think it's definitely up there. Now, I kind of did just mention the last champion, guys, on this countdown, this being Bel'veth. And for Bel'veth, yes, you're already nerfed, by the way. This is in 12-12B, but in 12-13, probably going to be the same case, right? So your AD growth down, your health growth down, your E's cooldown is going to be longer at later ranks. Your E's lifesteal is a flat 20% at all ranks instead of scaling to 26%. Your R's bonus health ratio, this is scaling less off your bonus attack damage, but for Bel'veth, you still have that stupid damage reduction, and you still have the extra range, just like I mentioned for Master Yi, in this patch as well. It's still 175. The champion, regardless of all of these nerfs, and there's a bunch of them, is still going to be giga busted. So those were the 15 most broken champions, guys, for 12-13. Let me know in the comments section who you think is going to be broken. Did we forget about a champion? What about Gwen? What about Sivir? Maybe these two deserve a shout as well. Let me know down below, and if you did enjoy the video, remember to leave a like, and until our next Season 12 upload, this has been Coach...